Hey, what's up guys? Will here for GSM Arena. Nubia is one of the veterans of the industry when it comes to smartphone gaming, and this is their newest gaming phone, the Red Magic 6. What's special about it, and does it offer a better experience than your standard smartphone with a powerful chipset? Let's find out in our full review. Phones catered toward gamers have certain standout aesthetics, and the Red Magic 6 fits right into that mold. It brings bold and angular design elements, which use contrasting colors to create an edgy and futuristic sort of look. Oh, and don't forget RGB LEDs. You get two colorful strips here, which you can program. The Red Magic logo at the bottom can also light up, but only in red. The back is actually a smooth, rounded piece of glass. The design elements sit underneath it. The edges curve into the anodized aluminum frame. Overall, the Red Magic 6 feels a bit slippery and heavy and not the most comfy for one-handed use. However, since most of the popular games are a two-handed affair, this isn't too much of a problem. I especially want to point out the pressure-sensitive shoulder triggers to use as extra inputs, handy for shooters for example. They're even more responsive than last year with a blazing fast 400Hz touch sampling rate. The display of the Red Magic 6 is a 6.8-inch AMOLED with a 1080p resolution, larger than last year's model. You see high refresh rate screens everywhere these days, but this one stands out as the highest we've seen yet, at 165Hz. This means that moving elements on screen, like when you're scrolling or swiping the interface, are smoother than ever before. But the difference between 165Hz and 144Hz refresh probably isn't noticeable to the untrained eye. Unlike last year, the refresh rate is adaptive. It goes down to 90Hz in most apps and to 60Hz when playing videos, in order to save energy. As far as actual high frame rate gaming goes, unfortunately even in 2021, support for anything above 60 FPS is still limited on Android. There are a few titles that support 120 FPS, but for now we were only able to find one game that supports 165, and that's Real Racing 3. There is another feature of the Red Magic screen that I haven't touched upon yet, the super high 500Hz single finger touch sampling rate. This is one of the most responsive screens we've come across yet, and that should benefit pretty much any game you play. Besides that, this display is contrasty, being an AMOLED, and plenty sharp. The screen is unbroken without a notch or cutout, and the support for 10-bit color too. However, the other aspects of the screen aren't too impressive. Colors aren't very accurate, with bluish whites, though they can be okay if you work with the color settings. And let's talk about the screen's brightness. Our Red Magic 6 was only able to achieve around 440 nits with the slider, and we weren't able to boost that through Max Auto mode, even though Nubia is promising up to 630 nits. This isn't enough to be enjoyable on a sunny day. For audio, the Red Magic 6 has a pair of stereo speakers, one on the bottom and the other that doubles as the phone's earpiece. They are well balanced and really loud, with a rating of excellent on our charts, but there's some noticeable distortion with the volume at high levels. Otherwise, the sound quality is decent, with even a little bit of bass.
I can't escape, I'm seeing you everywhere.
You can also plug in wired headphones through the 3.5mm jack if you want. One of the coolest features you'll find on the Red Magic 6, literally, is its built-in fan. It's easy to activate in the quick toggles and blows air out of the side vent to cool down the phone's internals. The sound is noticeable, especially if you switch to the fast cooling mode. There's also a bright red hardware switch on the side, which will launch the Red Magic's game space. Here you can access all of your games, as well as controls for the fan and light strips, connectivity to external devices, stats for your gameplay, and screen recording and network settings. Actually, the more in-depth game-related settings are available through a menu that you'll access by swiping from the right edge of the screen. There are a lot of features available here, including Do Not Disturb options, and you can change the screen refresh rate on the fly. There are also shortcuts here to popular apps like Discord and WhatsApp. Through this menu, you can map functions to the shoulder triggers, and there's a game enhancement menu that lets you choose from different performance boosting profiles. Another game-related feature I want to cover here is something called Smart Game, which works behind the scenes to intelligently control the phone's temperature with the fan, and also analyzes individual games to match them with their optimal refresh rate. According to Nubia, this should improve the stability of frame rates in your games by up to 50%. To improve your gaming experience even further, Nubia offers an adapter for extra connectivity, as well as an ice dock which both cools the phone and charges it at the same time. Both of these are sold separately though. The Red Magic 6's interface is Nubia's Red Magic UI 4.0 over Android 11. Besides those gaming features I talked about and a few cosmetic changes, it isn't too far from stock Android. Speaking of cosmetics, there are some neat gamer-style themes that you can use to spice up your home screen, or you can stick to a more vanilla-looking one. You can keep your apps in an app drawer or all on the home screen if you want. And there is something called an entertainment toolbox. It's basically the same as Samsung's Edge panel, providing you easy access to customizable shortcuts. Small Window is a feature that can minimize a supported app into a floating window for easy multitasking. Waking up and unlocking the Red Magic 6 can be done with an under-display fingerprint reader. It's very fast and reliable. And you get 128 or 256 gigs of storage on board, not expandable, paired with 8 or 12 gigs of RAM. Alright, now let's dive into what's under the hood. The Red Magic 6 runs on the top-tier Snapdragon 888 chipset, which offers support for 5G connectivity. Performance is flagship grade, as you would expect. In benchmarks, the numbers are pretty much neck and neck between the Red Magic 6 and other top performers. It does seem to be edged out just a bit in GPU tests by another gaming phone, the Asus ROG Phone 5, but it's not that much of a difference. Gaming performance here is excellent. We had no issues with even the most demanding titles, and the UI runs smooth as butter too. Plus, there is the advanced cooling system which involves many elements, but most importantly the built-in fan. It provides great sustained performance over long sessions. With the fan turned on, CPU performance was still at 94% of its maximum after an hour of heavy lifting. Impressive. Something that's not so impressive though is the battery life, despite the large 5000 mAh battery. The Red Magic 6 was able to score an endurance rating of 88 hours in our battery life tests. It's not bad, but most of the phones we test with this size battery score at least 100. Charging speed is decently fast though. The bundled 30-watt adapter was able to charge the Red Magic 6 from 0 to 63% in half an hour. Now let's go over the cameras. There's a 64 megapixel quad Bayer main cam, an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a macro camera. It's the same setup as the previous model, but the processing is different here. 16 megapixel photos from the main camera are decent, but not great. You get enough detail and wide dynamic range, and the colors look natural. However, the exposure often comes out darker than what you see in real life. The detail also appears to be over-sharpened if you look closely. Portraits are taken with the main cam, and these have nice sharpness and detail. However, complex backgrounds can trip up the separation, and sometimes the software exposes for the background, not the subject's face. 8 megapixel photos taken with the ultra-wide camera aren't impressive. These are a bit soft with not a lot of detail and narrow dynamic range. Colors are similar to what you get on the main cam. If you're shooting with the macro camera, just like on previous Nubia phones, you get focus peaking on the viewfinder to help make sure your subject's finest details are in focus. And sure enough, the macro shots come out sharp, with lifelike colors, but don't expect much detail here. In low light, the main camera's photos have a bright enough exposure and you get some detail in shadows. But otherwise, these aren't great. They're generally soft with clipped highlights. If you switch to night mode, each shot takes a couple of seconds to process. The benefits are worth it though. The photos come out sharper with more fine detail, improved contrast, and restored highlights. As is usually the case with these sorts of cameras, the ultra-wide doesn't perform well at night. These shots are dark and muddy looking, with narrow dynamic range and plenty of noise. And there's no support for night mode. Selfies are taken with the 8 megapixel front-facing cam. These aren't very good. They're lacking in detail and they're even a bit blurry at times. Dynamic range is lacking and the phone may choose to expose for the background rather than the face. The Red Magic 6 can record video in up to 8K resolution at 30 FPS. 8K video is alright, but tends to be overexposed, resulting in clipped highlights and bland colors. The same goes for 4K video. Detail is decent despite being less than the 8K, and there is low noise and good contrast. However, the exposure is off, resulting in brighter objects coming out clipped. So that's the Nubia Red Magic 6. You get a cool looking gamer style design with LEDs. The super responsive AMOLED display has the highest refresh rate we've ever seen. The stereo speakers are nice and loud. the charging speed is fast, and gaming performance is right up there with the best. The shoulder triggers are nice to have too, and with that built-in fan, you can game for long periods without overheating. A lot of these features are things that you can't find on a standard smartphone, and if you're a hardcore gamer, the Red Magic 6 may be just what you're looking for at this price. However, if you wanted a more well-rounded device, the average battery life, mediocre cameras, and not so bright screen could be reasons to look elsewhere. Thanks for watching guys, stay safe and see you on the next one.